Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yeah, every day.
Great.
Every way.
It's great to hear your voice. It's great to hear your voice, Dr. Shealy. How is Dr. Shealy?
Well, he is as good as ever. I still feel
Wonderful.
26.
Wonderful. 26. Dr. Shealy, is there anything that you'd like to share with us before we get into today's class? I've got a bunch of questions, but if you've got something that you want to share.
I think the only thing that is oppressing the world is the shenanigans of the leftistas. But other than that, I'm okay.
Yeah, it's awful. Well, over the weekend, did you experience a tornado out in your neck of Missouri?
No.
Over the weekend? We did here.
No, we had warnings, but no.
Well, we had one.
Sightings.
Okay. Well, it sure felt like we had one. And, I don't think we made the map, but it was something else. All of a sudden, we could feel a massive, continued gust of wind, probably for 5 minutes or so. And, power went out. And the reason we know that the power went out is because they've been spraying the skies for, let's say a week. And the sky has been occluded and we have not had enough electricity to pump water for the cows. They drink about 3,000 gallons a day. So we have to pump 3,000 gallons of water, to the cows per day. That takes a lot of electricity. And then, all the other uses, the typical uses, washing machine, dishwasher, lighting, computers, those kinds of things. And, so our battery bank was run down. I mean, it was depleted, before it was running fine and then it ran out of, electricity, let's say an hour or two before the storm hit. So we were on the grid at that point. Well, when the tornado came by, it took the electric power down and, not just us, but the whole area. And I wanted to share with, our class and get your thoughts on the medical situations that can occur when there is no electricity. So, for example, Dr. Shealy, do you know of patients who have equipment, life-saving equipment that they particularly use in their situations that it would be a problem if they didn't have electricity to power that equipment?
Oh, yes, of course. There are people who can't survive without oxygen, and some of those require a backup with electricity. And, of course, even getting access to your medications. If you don't have lots of flashlights on hand, you can't find them.
Mm-hmm. Right. We have around our house these rechargeable flashlights, and they have they're handheld and they're small. So I'm thinking maybe 5 inches long. Some of them may be 4.5 inches long, and they have a rechargeable cell. And we keep a charger plugged in, or it's ready to be plugged in, where we can charge up to 4 cells at a time. So we use them under the hood when we're working on vehicles and farm equipment and going outside. And they have this beam that you can focus. You just move the barrel of the flashlight outward, and it sharpens the focus, so you can probably see 100 yards with this little LED flashlight. And that's great. So we have them all over our house. That was one of the things I wanted to mention, that yes, you should consider having something like that. Next thing is, for those who have these oxygen generating machines, as you mentioned, they require electricity and they have a motor and, they demand a lot of current. So what do you do in a situation like that? I have an answer. And it's something that makes a lot of sense. You could have a generator, but heck, if you are on oxygen and you have a generator that's not electric start, you might not be able to pull the cord to get that generator started. Do you agree with that, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And, so here's my recommendation to pursue further investigation, class. There's a device called an inverter. And an inverter is it's a box, sometimes they're about the size of a shoebox. And you can hook them up with jumper cables like you would have for an automobile if you're going to jumpstart one car, with another. And you could cut, two of those ends off and attach them to this inverter box. An inverter box might be rated at 500 watts, 1,000 watts, 1,500 watts, 2,500 watts. And what you can do is take those jumper cables and attach them to your car battery, which is right outside your house, right? Or it's in the garage. And there's a little switch on this inverter box, and you flip the switch, and now you have inverted from 12 volts DC from your car battery or pickup truck battery to 120 volts AC. And if you had an extension cord that was long enough to reach wherever your electric equipment is to generate oxygen, you could plug that in. And so now you have a device that will let you generate enough electricity to run that oxygen generator. And what does it cost? We'll figure about $200 for the inverter, figure about $20 for the booster cables, and you already have a car, and you pick up an extension cord, a 100-foot extension cord, if that's what you need, for another $20. So that's what it's going to take. And what can you run on that? Well, if you wanted to, if you get one that's 1,500 watts or greater, you could run your refrigerator on it. You could run your freezer on it. And in our case, when we had the tornado, we had a pretty big problem. And the problem is we have an outdoor wood furnace. And the outdoor wood furnace heats us 400 gallons of water to about 175, 178 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's kept at that temperature because we heat our hot water in our house with that. So there's a circulator system that runs the hot water through, from the outdoor wood furnace into our hot water heater through a water jacket, and it heats the hot water. So it bleeds off the excess heat that is, ever building in the outside wood furnace. But if we lose power, that fire in that wood furnace keeps going and going and going, getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and it will melt the PEX plastic tubing that runs underground, and it will destroy the underground plumbing system. So we have to keep that thing running. Well, when we had a power failure and our off-grid system the batteries were dead, we had to have a solution within a half an hour. And what we did was we hooked up an inverter to a truck battery in the garage, ran an extension cord to the outdoor wood furnace, and we were good to go. A few hours later, the power came on. So what I'm saying is there are things that you need to think about in advance. Any comments about that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, it's pretty complex. However, if you've got help, I mean, a person who's on oxygen might not have much of the ability to get around and do things like that. So we've got to have an assistant or a helper anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And or have it in place already, where all you have to do is throw a switch. So, for example, instead of having that truck battery and the booster cables, you just have another battery. We'll call it a recreational vehicle battery, or a boat battery called a deep cycle battery, kind of like a large pickup truck battery. It's group number 27 or group number 31. You can buy them at Walmart if you want. It's called a deep cycle battery. It's about $100, and you can have that on standby, just sitting right in your garage, all hooked up, ready to go. And then all you do is throw the switch. You've got your extension cord all wound up, ready to go. And if you can make it over to the extension cord, you're good to go. So, and you keep it on a trickle charger once a week, and it's ready to go. So that's another way to go. There's another thing, and it's a lot less complicated, and it's for those people who might be on one of those breathing treatment systems, like an air atomizer, and they put a solution of albuterol or something like that in it. And they have these little pumps, and they're little compressors, and they have this little mouthpiece and so forth. And they might be on those. Dr. Shealy, some people use them as rescue, some people use them as maintenance. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Those can be powered by something really simple, like an uninterruptible power system. And for your computer. Now, we have, all of our computers here are old, so we don't have, we have a notebook or two, but most of our computers are tower-based, so they run on alternating current, plug them into the wall. Well, we have an uninterruptible power system, and it's 1,000 watts. And that 1,000-watt system can ride this broadcast through power outages, blackouts, and things like that for about 5 minutes at the most. Well, if you had one of those charged, and if it wasn't being used at that time, and if the power failed, you would have enough electricity to run one of those nebulizers. And they're called uninterruptible power systems. But you'll need one that's about 1,000 watts or more. And you need one with good batteries. Okay, so if it's used and you get it on eBay for $50, it probably won't have batteries. But you can get batteries brand new on eBay to replace the dead batteries from your used UPS. So I just wanted to share that. And you could also use a UPS for emergency lighting, if you have a LED lighting. And that's what we do and have done for probably 25 years now. So I just wanted to share those two thoughts, Dr. Shealy. Any comments or suggestions?
The ultimate in being prepared.
Well, being prepared is kind of a simple concept. It's having what you need before you need it, right? So, we've experienced outages. When we were in Virginia, we had an ice storm. It lasted about 11 days, just like the one here in Missouri. And it was in the 90s. And hardly anybody was prepared. I mean, we had a neighbor who had a generator, but it didn't run right. And they couldn't get it started. And they didn't have extension cords to run from the generator into the house. We had another neighbor who had a generator and but didn't have much gasoline. We had another neighbor who had gas logs and a propane tank, but no generator. So except for us, all of the neighbors whose properties touched ours needed help. And it took all my time. It was a snowstorm, an ice storm. It was just terrible, freezing cold. It was a full-time job for me just to keep our neighbors alive. Because they, some of them had some of what they needed, but they didn't have everything they needed, and they didn't really test it to make sure. And we couldn't it was so slippery. The road was so slippery. If you just stood in place on the road, you'd fall down. It was just a sheet of ice.
That wouldn't take much for me.
Well, it was not like being on an ice skating rink, because that's flat. These roads are crowned. So if you just stood just off the center of the road, just a little bit, like 2 feet off the center of the road, you'd slide across the road just by trying to stand there. It was that slippery. And it was terrible. One guy refused to leave his farm, grandfather type. He refused to leave his farm. He was going to stay there. The rest of the family went to a place where they had heat, fireplace, and they found the grandfather dead, frozen to death, when they were able to get out. So it's serious business. We'll be right back with Dr. Shealy right after these few short commercial announcements. That's Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy's a medical doctor and always written well over 30 books. And he's a prolific writer. He has a clinic in Springfield, Missouri. And you can go to the website and you can find NormShealy.com, and all the information for contact is right there. I have right here in the studio my vitamins and supplements that I buy from Dr. Shealy. I get them at his office, but you can buy them online right at NormShealy.com. This is not a commercial. We don't have any commercials here at USA Prepares. I am just so thankful that I have I've gotten the knowledge to use supplements properly through Dr. Shealy's assistance. right here on the radio. And his youth formula, I can't say enough about it. It's vitamin C plus MSM. It's not the same as vitamin C that you buy elsewhere. It's vitamin C, ascorbic acid, 2,000 milligrams plus 1,000 milligrams of MSM. And according to what I've learned from Dr. Shealy, it is way more effective. And I believe it is. And I also take Dr. Shealy's youth formula. So I just wanted to say that as an endorsement, it absolutely positively works for me, or I wouldn't say it. So I think you should consider it if you decide that supplements make sense. Dr. Shealy, I remember hearing from doctors years ago, that vitamins, it just makes expensive urine. What are your thoughts about that?
They are stupid beyond belief. Interesting, there was an article that just came around today that actually one of the major causes of death from the so-called coronavirus is a low vitamin B1. And as you may know, I've been recommending for all adults 25 milligrams of the entire B complex for many, many years. Way back in the dark ages, before Roundup and fluoride, we might have gotten by with 2.5 milligrams of B1 a day. But now I think you need at least 25.
And class, you can find that out if you go to if you go to the internet and you decide you want to buy some vitamins. There is a supplement facts section on the label, and I'm trying to find one right here. Vitamin B. Vitamin B6, 5 milligrams.
Not enough.
That's all it has. Yep, that's what one of these. And that happens to be at Sam's Club. It says compare versus Centrum. They call it Women 50 Plus, and it has 5 milligrams of B6. Now B12, it's got 50 micrograms. How about that, Dr. Shealy?
You need 1,000. That is usually you're wasting money.
Yeah. Okay, so what we've just shown you, class, is that there is a difference in the content of multiple vitamins. There's a difference in the content. So although they may all be multiple vitamins, the ingredients and the quantity of the ingredients are different. And even the recommendation of, what they call a percent of daily value or the minimum daily requirement. Dr. Shealy, what do you think about the minimum daily requirement as established and stated by the federal government? Is that adequate to have the minimum?
Well, if you trust the government in anything, you're wasting your life.
I was thinking about the word minimum. Yeah. And so what would be the minimum amount of gas to have in your gas tank?
An ounce.
Is that enough? Is that
1 gallon's not enough. You're going anywhere.
Yeah. I was thinking about the relationship between hydration and high blood pressure. I was talking with a gentleman last week who has extremely high blood pressure. I've never heard numbers so high. I didn't think it was possible to have numbers that high. I really didn't. And so maybe I can send a copy of this broadcast to him. When we come back, can you tell us about the relationship between hydration, meaning drinking enough water, and high blood pressure? Or if you don't like water, what happens if you drink, let's say, Coca-Cola or 7-Up? Or
At least twice a day.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, I've noticed, I take my blood pressure often, and I've noticed there's a direct relationship between when I forget to have enough water and, shortly after, within 20 minutes of having water, my blood pressure will come way down. And I was wondering, is that a normal relationship, being dehydrated and, just being busy, not drinking enough water, have your blood pressure go up? Is that normal?
Well, it's part of the whole. Remember, it's stress in general, and so your mental agitation can cause it. Like when people walk in the door of my office, they have what's called white coat syndrome, and I haven't worn a white coat in 50 years. But in general, of course, the average person does not drink half their body weight in pounds in ounces of water. And, of course, they're drinking city water. They might just as well drink gas.
Okay. And you're speaking figuratively, obviously. So, Dr. C, what about soda, orange soda, Coca-Cola, 7-Up as a substitute?
No,
for water?
It's not a substitute. It's a damatute.
Well, the reason I used that was some people may think that it's liquid and as you said, gasoline is not a substitute for water. So what would be obviously we'd want to drink water to hydrate. Is a soda, a syrupy, sugary, flavored, carbonated drink, is that something that would be damaging to your blood pressure if you wanted to lower it?
Absolutely. Sugar itself is going to aggravate it, and then whatever other poison they've got in it. There is not a so-called pop in the world that is really safe to drink.
Okay. And would you say that sugar is an inflammatory, I don't know how to say it, food, but substance in the body?
Absolutely. It is pure poison. It is not even a food. There are only two plants that grow sucrose in any quantity, sugar beet and sugar cane. No other the other plants don't have sucrose. They have fructose and glucose.
I saw a video of a farmer in South America somewhere, and they were growing sugarcane, and this guy was just so proud of how great it tasted right from the farm, and he would cut off a piece and stick it in his mouth and chew it, and when he smiled, the white pearly teeth that he used to have, they were gone. And there were these black stubs left in his jaw. So that's a constant reminder that I have of sweets and keeping them in your mouth for a long time. Mark in New York, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Hey, good morning, folks. I wanted to bring something to your attention on preparedness heat source in an emergency or power outage. I ran across this a couple weeks ago. It's an item on eBay. It's a gas log. I've no financial interest in this. The guy's selling them out of somewhere in Georgia. He sold 144 of these just in the past month, and they're approximately 30,000 BTU fireplace, a gas log burner without the logs for $40 each, free shipping.
And what's it called? I'm going to look it up right now.
You want the item number or the description?
Description's fine.
Okay. New 18-inch fireplace burner assembly. And then it gives the model number. It says ready heater, but it's not ready heater. It's not a U.S. made. It's Chinese, I'm sure.
Okay, I found it. So what it really is, it's a burner looks like it's a burner for gas logs, but it does not have the logs with it. So all it is the burner. It's $39.99 or best offer, free shipping. And you would place the logs on this. You'd put this thing in your fireplace and you would attach it to some gas piping. Is that right?
That's right. It's propane or natural gas, and I had one of these that I used as a backup in the cellar to keep the pipes from freezing. I had it hooked to a 20-pound tank, propane tank, and the one I had was electronic ignition with the battery box that could be used with a remote. This is not that type. It's strictly manual with a push-button igniter with I believe a double or AAA battery inside of it. Now, he sold 144 of these. I don't know how many he's got left, but certainly, he does have the make offer button. If you were to order two, I'm sure he'd probably take as low as maybe $33.
Okay. I'd like to make a comment before our class jumps on this. I don't want to put cold water on this. What I did in our kitchen is I put in a gas log fireplace. We don't have a chimney by design. I did not want to have a hole in the roof because typically they leak. So what I did was I used a fireplace, a propane fireplace with gas logs in it. And I installed that in the kitchen, and I have a custom area for that. We built that into our house for that reason. And the idea was, in an emergency, we could have gas logs for emergency heat. But when you do that, you must have a window open to let fresh air in. You must, because you're creating toxic gas. It'll kill you. The carbon dioxide will kill you if you don't ventilate it outward. And let me just give since you mentioned this, let me just give a thumbnail sketch of what that means. 30,000 BTUs. 30,000 BTUs would be about 1/3 the amount of heat that a typical basement type heater, gas heater, or oil burner would generate. Okay. 30,000 BTUs is about 1/3 of a gallon of propane per hour. So to make 30,000 BTUs, you'd burn 1/3 of a gallon of propane per hour. A 20-pound propane tank has about 17 pounds worth of propane, or about 4 gallons. So that would last one 20-pound typical barbecue propane tank or propane cylinder would be about 4 gallons, and that would last roughly 12 hours. So I just wanted to put those statistics out so our class would know. Does that make sense to you? Do you buy that?
100%.
Okay. All right. So I would recommend, if you're going to use a propane burner, that you get the gas logs, the logs to put on the burner. And you'll probably get a little bit more complete combustion because those gas logs will be glowing and burn any more of the unburned gas that comes out of the jets or the burner of that propane burner. So yes, you're absolutely right. The other thing is, if you have a wood type fireplace, the kinds in the good old days, like in the 1950s, 60s, a masonry fireplace. If you had one of those and you had a fire running in that fireplace, and if you had some kind of ventilation to let air in so that fresh air would come in to allow that fire to burn, you would have a net heat loss, I believe, of about 10%. So really, believe it or not, you would lose more heat than you would gain from the fireplace. Now, sitting in front of the fireplace would be really warm, but going to that far bedroom on the other end of the house would be freezing cold. Have you experienced that? I
didn't necessarily, because it was used in the basement in the crawl space to keep the pipes from freezing. And I did have a Nighthawk carbon monoxide detector, but if the power's out, the only way you're going to know what the CO is to have it on a battery backup DC power source.
And that's something very important that you mentioned, a Nighthawk, NIGHT, HAWK, carbon monoxide detector class. So if you have a gas stove, if you have a propane backup system for heating your house, or if you have one of those hang-on-the-wall heaters that's propane or natural gas, it's absolutely essential that you have a carbon monoxide detector. Absolutely required. Because, well, let's let Dr. Shealy explain this. Dr. Shealy, what happens if you have a failure in, let's say, a vent of a basement heater that is natural gas or propane, and it leaks the exhaust fumes into the basement, and they travel throughout the heating system into the house? What can happen with carbon monoxide poisoning? Can you describe what that might be like?
Death. It is a significant cause of death. We don't know how to use carbon monoxide.
And I assume what you mean by that is the body doesn't know how to take advantage of carbon monoxide.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It is poison.
Yeah. And it would be, you've heard these stories. You've heard of people, they decide that they have had it with paying taxes, and they go into the garage, they close the garage door, they start up their engine in their car, and they suffocate themselves with carbon monoxide poisoning. Of course, I'm recommending that you don't do that. Don't even consider it.
It doesn't sound like a pleasant way to go to me.
Right. On TV, they show it as just falling asleep. Mark in New York, any comments?
No, he's covered it all pretty well. I just want to say, too, that if you're running a kerosene wick heater, if the kerosene isn't as clear as water, you'll be replacing the wick. And the most I ever got off the Nighthawk detector with a rectangular-shaped, Japanese-made 9300 BTU was about 27 parts per million. Which is
you're talking about something akin to a kerosene type heater.
Correct.
Is that what you're talking?
Correct.
Okay, and that's a very good point, Mark. I'm glad you mentioned this. Please don't think I'm throwing a wet blanket on what you're saying. I just want our class to be careful and have knowledge.
Oh, certainly.
We have a kerosene style heater, and I probably have two of them, and we bought them in the good old days, back in the 90s, and before we had propane. Our first farmhouse did not have propane. We installed it. And I think that's a better way to go, as long as you have propane. But kerosene is a pretty good way to go, but you have to ventilate the room. You really do. And the kerosene style propane heater with the wick is pretty good because you really don't get that kerosene smell. It combusts almost all the kerosene, and almost all of it goes to heat. It's a very efficient system. It works really, really well. And you can get, I'm trying to think about how long, maybe 15 hours on a gallon of propane. Is that about right? I'm sorry, kerosene. Is that about right?
On the 9300, I could get up to like 24 hours if I tailored back the wick.
There you go. So heating is important, especially coming into the winter. Consider propane. Consider a gas log type heater, but make sure you ventilate and make sure you have the supply of the fuel. Mark, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate your call. Don't be a stranger. So Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I'm stunned. I looked up the price of K1 kerosene. And class, if you're going to use kerosene in one of these portable type heaters like a kerosene heater, you need to use K1 kerosene. That's K-1. That has the reduced amount of sulfur in it. Sulfur's toxic, and it can cause respiratory distress. Isn't that right, Dr. Shealy? Sulfur in the air? Mm-hmm.
Unequivocal.
Okay. So you don't want to use lamp oil. You don't want to use anything but K1, K-1, the letter K, hyphen, the number 1, kerosene in these particular heating systems. And I looked up the price and I was stunned. You can buy kerosene in a gallon jug from Walmart for $41.95. That's insanity. Okay. Kerosene used to be, like 7 cents a gallon. Now the current, wholesale price is around $2.57 per gallon. If you want to buy it at, True Value Hardware Store, you get a 5-gallon jug with the jug, a metal can for $49.99, so $10 a gallon. But you should be able to get it retail for around $3.50, $4 a gallon at, a gas station that sells K1 kerosene. So I just wanted to mention that. We have, let's see. We've got David in Illinois and then Kathy, on hold. David, welcome.
How you doing?
Hey.
I can't believe kerosene went up. All the farmers we hung out with in the days, they all had backup kerosene heaters and cans of that stuff. I can't believe it went up that high, man.
Well, they used to have, there's a company called Siegler, and they made a box type heating system, and it would burn oil, kerosene oil. And they used to call them oil circulators, and that's what they called them. And they would heat the whole, farmhouse almost with this one little box that would, plumb into the masonry chimney. So yeah, it was common. They'd have a 250 or 500 gallon tank on legs, up in the air, maybe 6 feet in the air. And, that would be the kerosene supply for heating their homes. I mean, that's what they did. And some of them actually used fuel oil, because if they were vented, outside. But you're right.
Man. Anyways, you were speaking, I'm sorry to go back a little bit. You were speaking about the inverters and the portable inverters. Now, I do have generators and things here, but every time I'm out at a thrift store or a pawn shop, there's always some of those portable inverters, and you can I've talked them down to under $10, and I got, 2 or 3 of them here. They're not really big, but they come with cases. They even come with a cigarette lighter adapter. If you don't want to hook them up to the engine, you can plug them through the cigarette lighter.
Okay. Yeah.
And they work. If you have to.
Dr. Shealy's chuckling. And, if you have the ones that plug into the cigarette lighter, they're going to be maybe 200 to 400 watts or so. So they're not going to have a lot of current for what you might be trying to do. So you might want to get one that's a little bigger than that. I like 750 as an absolute minimum. 1,000 really is my minimum in terms of watts. But they do work. And Dr. Shealy, you might find this interesting. I have a pickup truck, as you know, and sometimes I carry a small compressor with me to inflate farm tires. So if we get a flat out in the field and can't get that tractor back home without destroying the tire, I'll bring a compressor. Well, I'll need some way of running that compressor. And so I have an inverter. So I just hook up the inverter, plug the compressor into the inverter, which is hooked up to the truck battery, and I inflate the tire. Sometimes I carry these portable 5 or 8 gallon air tanks with me, and I'll bring a couple of those to inflate tires too. But so you can use these inverters for lots of things if you get one big enough. So I guess my rule of thumb is whatever size you need, multiply that times 2 and get that size. Any comments, David?
Yeah, I just got mine because they were there. They were cheap, and I figured I'd rather have one, even if it was something for small use. I got it.
Absolutely.
Instead of going to the big stuff.
Yeah, we carry the small ones, like the 440 watt ones. They're under the seat in the vehicles. So, when the police decide they want to stop us and look for drugs and stuff, they'll find an inverter under the seat.
Yeah, I have one that's 1200 and a 650, I think it is. So I do. The smaller one did come with cigarette lighter, not the big one, not the other one.
Right. Right.
So yeah. Now you brought up about nebulizers. A lot of people seem to be using them. And I know you can exchange them every so often and get a new one. If you get a new one, they have some that are small, about the size of a Rubik's Cube. We each have our own. They come in little packs. You can get a battery. They also come with cigarette adapters, or you could plug them into the wall. You could plug them into a battery pack. You could plug them in. And they don't take much power, and they're right there in a little pack with everything you need. So you can take it with you.
What is the brand name? I want to look that up right now.
Oh, man. You hit me with names, man. I can't.
I'll tell you what. When you get a chance, if you just send me an email or call in, we can share that with our class. But I had a couple questions about you mentioned something that I believe is true. Actually, everything you mentioned I believe is true so far. And that is that more people are using them. I believe that's what you're indicating. Dr. Shealy, have you seen more people using inhaling type devices, rescue inhalers, nebulizers, etc., to assist with breathing more than ever before? Is this a new phenomenon?
I am not seeing an increase, but then who knows?
Okay.
They may not mention it.
We've got Kathy on hold. David, did you have anything else you want to share with us?
No, I'm good. I'll let you go. Thanks.
Okay. Hey, David, and I got your message from Mrs. Finelli. Thank you for calling. Cocked, locked, blissed. Here we are at hour number 2. USA Prepares with Dr. Norm Shealy. Kathy is on one line. George in New Hampshire is on another line. I have a quick comment about gas prices. They said that gas prices are averaging $2.11 per gallon nationally. And the least expensive fuel is in Missouri at $1.77. Not true. I bought gasoline over the weekend at $1.59 at Sam's Club, and you can buy it right now in Ozark, Missouri, Republic, Missouri, and for $1.44 to $1.52. So yeah, we are lower than most of the country, but not $1.77. You can still get it for $1.44 in our neck of the woods. Let's see, we've got Kathy in Ohio. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, Vince.
Hey.
Hi, Vince. I have a couple questions for Dr. Shealy.
Okay.
My first question is, I pretty much know what you're going to say about the question, but I want your opinion. And if you have a prevention, they keep advertising the shingles vaccine, and I want to know what your thoughts are about it and the dangers of it, or the benefits, if there are any.
Well, I have to say that personally, I haven't had a flu shot that I can remember in my life. Not planning on it. And I don't like the huge number that children are given today. By age 6, I think it's over 52 different vaccines. I think that's dangerous and injuring the brain and the immune system. And one of my favorite statements is to get me to take the COVID-19 vaccine, they're going to have to use a gun first.
Yeah.
Okay, and Kathy?
What about
Kathy?
I'm sorry.
Dr. Shealy has experienced shingles to the nth degree, and he's just told you that he's not going to do it. Is that right, Dr. Shealy? Am I reading that 5 by 5?
That is correct. And I had shingles at age 18, 70 years ago, and then to get shingles again, 70 years later, what good would a vaccine do me? If I had the actual disease and it didn't keep me inoculated or free of it, why would a vaccine do a better job than the real disease?
And what Kathy may be talking about, Dr. Shealy, is I remember going into Sam's Club, and I believe Kathy is a member of Sam's as well, and they would have a table set up, and there'd be a sign that says, get your free shingles vaccine right here, right now, while you're walking by. So there are plenty of advertisements in encouraging businesses trying to get you to get vaccinated for shingles. Kathy and I guess you're saying, does it make sense? Does it work? And is it worth the risk? I guess that's the combination of what you're saying. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I personally would keep my immune system strong by having adequate D3 and adequate B complex and adequate C.
Okay. Well, I have some people that keep saying, well, shingles is really bad and you need to get the vaccine because if it gets in your eye, and I guess from what I've read, I agree with you. I just don't think that it does what they say it's going to do. But my argument is, what can I give them as a rebuttal? I mean, other than keeping their immune system strong, if they don't want to go that route, then is there anything I can say that the harms of the shingles vaccine or
tell them they're stupid and I said so. You may quote me.
Okay. Well,
Kathy, before you continue, one quick question. I'm sure you know people who have had a flu shot. I'm sure you know that. I'm talking about the good old days before last December, right? Do you know anyone who's gotten a flu shot who has not gotten really, really ill from the flu shot? Do you know anybody?
I know a few people that haven't. They've gotten it, but I don't know that it necessarily happens like right away. I think sometimes it happens a few days or even a week later. When I was 18, I worked at a teaching hospital, and they mandated the swine flu vaccine, and it was about a 3-minute walk to go to where I had to get the vaccine, and it was pretty much either get the vaccine or you can't work here. And I went and I got it. By the time I got back to my department, I literally couldn't walk. I just kind of felt on the floor. I got sick for 3 or 4 days. And then obviously later, people had they were paralyzed and they had the, Guillain-Barré syndrome. And that didn't come out till years later, but I've had my own negative experiences with the vaccine, which I haven't had one in 20, 25 years at least.
Was that in the 1970s that happened to you, where you had that debilitating? The reason, how did I know that, Kathy? How did I know that? The reason I know that is because the same thing happened to my mom and dad. They were in the educational world. They were both educators. And my mom worked at a college. My dad was a principal, and they were told, you will get this vaccine. They got it, and they told me, I was at the university at the time. I didn't know it, but they said that they were on death's door. Both of them could not move nor help each other. It was debilitating. So, Dr. Shealy, any comments from your medical expertise perspective?
Well, I just again think each individual has to make up his or her own mind. I've made up mine. I'm not wanting any now or ever again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm with you.
Well,
Dr. Shealy.
Dr. Shealy, the argument that I've heard some people say is that if you've had chickenpox, that apparently you can still get it again.
Exactly. Well, you can have shingles and get it again, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you do get shingles, is there anything that you can do to minimize it?
Well, immediately, I think the ideal would be to get 50 grams of vitamin C IV and take, extra vitamin C at least as well as you can tolerate it gut-wise.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
And I don't know if Dr. Shealy has the information, but I've read a couple articles by a holistic veterinarian, and he talked about getting pets spayed and neutered earlier. He was primarily talking about dogs, and he's done some research, and what he's come up with is, he said that when you get a dog spayed or neutered earlier, they had noticed an increase of hip dysplasia, knee and joint problems. And the theory was, if the dog is not fully mature, which like in big dogs, probably like labs and bigger, by like 2 years old, they're still, they're just about done growing then. He said that you've noticed increase in those kind of degenerative diseases. And when they didn't do the spay and neuter, they had a very low incidence of that. And their theory was because of the hormones that are still helping the dog to develop. Does that make sense to you, Dr. Shealy?
Well, every breed of dog has its own sort of life expectancy. My 10-year-old German Shepherd is rapidly getting lamer in his hind legs, and I don't know anything that will prevent it at this point. He's according to one expert, the longest an average German Shepherd could live is about 12 years, which is a lot shorter than a lot of other dogs. And so I don't know any injection that is going to help.
Dr. Shealy, I found a veterinarian by me who does chiropractic adjustments, and my dog had her cruciate ligament torn, and I ended up having the surgery, and I took her in last year, and it made a marked difference because of her limping for so long on the one side. He said her spine had rotated. Now, I don't know if that could help your dog, but I'm just throwing it out there for someone else that has a pet. If they could find a vet that does chiropractic adjustments, I notice a huge difference. I only take her about once every 6 months, but it makes a big difference for her.
Right. No, I like the idea of adjustments. That is certainly worth considering.
Dr. Shealy, I have an add-on question from what Kathy just mentioned. And I pulled my shoulder out, and I believe I had bursitis. So naturally what I did was I took Dr. Shealy's PEMF device, and I put it on my shoulder, and I ran it for 15 minutes for several days. And by the first day, I couldn't believe how quickly the pain had eased. It's now virtually gone. And I'm talking about no chemical additives, nothing. And what seems to, as a farmer, I forget. I forget that I'm close to 70 years old. And maybe I forget that I'm close to 70 because I'm close to 70. And that's why I forget. But, you know, I hurt myself more and more. And I got to tell you that it seems that your pulsed electromagnetic frequency device is a way of treating bursitis. Have you, and the reason I'm mentioning that is because of what Kathy said. What about for animals?
Well, as a matter of fact, one of my long-standing students has used it repeatedly on her dog, and it helped tremendously with the dog's limp and pain. So and interestingly, a lot of animals I've had reports like it. They beg for it almost.
Meaning you put it under, like if they have a little bed and they're used to sleeping there, just put it right under the bed and fire it up?
Yeah.
Give them 15 minutes worth, or what do you recommend?
An hour or more is fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got to tell you, Dr. Shealy, just as a side note, I've been experimenting with it for inflammation, and for me, it absolutely positively works. You sent me an email, and you indicated, use the pulse electromagnetic frequency device. It absolutely works. So I want to tell you that, a week later, wow, I am really impressed. Hey, class, this is not a commercial. This is an endorsement. Kathy, back to you.
Vince, I just have one more question. Let's say that someone has to get the vaccine, or they work in the medical field and they don't have a way out. Is there something that you can do to detox it out of your system?
That's a really great question, Kathy. Can you hold till we get back from this commercial announcement?
Sure.
For the answers? Okay. That's a really good question, Dr. Shealy. What do you do if you work in a system where they say you will take these vaccines? Okay, Kathy's with us. Kathy, back to you.
Well, Vince, my question was, is there anything you can do if you have to get the vaccine? I do have a product. It's made by Lidl Laboratories, and it's supposed to help relieve the ill effects from vaccines. It's a homeopathic remedy. But I don't know if it says a detox on it, so I'm guessing that it helps to get rid of the ill effects and maybe the toxins. But I don't know if Dr. Shealy's got another answer.
40 years ago, I was taught by a very good physician that if you give 1/10 of a cc of the vaccine intradermally, raise a wheel under the skin instead of 1 cc intramuscularly, and do it 2 weeks in a row, is just as good a benefit as having the whole 1 cc. With obviously you at least avoid 80% of the risk of the procedure. The only person I know who would do that is a holistically oriented physician.
Okay.
Kat, are you clear on what he just said, Kathy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dr. Shealy, is there a way that a prescription can be written to not get a vaccine?
I don't know. No, we can give a letter stating that people have allergies or sensitivities that is medically contraindicated, but that may or may not work.
Is that something that your office does, Dr. Shealy?
Yes, I do it for patients. I've done it already for a number of people. But I have
Kathy?
to see the patient. I can't do it to somebody else.
But you can do it via a consultation with Skype, or can you do it just over the phone, or do you actually physically have to see, I can
do it with a phone consultation.
Kathy, does that help you?
Yeah. Yes, it does. No, Vince. Yeah.
Okay. So to get in touch with Dr. Shealy, it's 417-351-5221, if I'm going by memory. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
You got it.
Okay, 417-351-5221. That's the telephone number in the Central Time Zone here in Missouri of Dr. Shealy's clinic, and that is in Springfield, Missouri. And you can set up a telephone conversation. telephone consultation with Dr. Shealy, and they'll get in touch with you, and you will get your appointment. And I think it's absolutely worth doing. I would rather not have something that I don't know injected into my body, Dr. Shealy. Even, we really don't know. Even though doctors have been, and I'm not talking about Dr. Shealy, even though doctors have been informed by the pharmacological or pharmacomafia as to what's in the vaccines, even the salespeople don't really know if what they say is in it, or what they say isn't in it. They really don't know. Because somebody could make a mistake, the formulary could change. There could be a lot of things that could happen to alter what you think is in that injectable compared to what's in that injectable. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
And they're only giving you a portion of it anyway. At best, they don't give you all the details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kathy, you and I are on this Friday. I'm looking forward to it. Yep. Do you have any other questions?
Just one quick comment, and I will let you go.
And I have one question for you.
Oh, sure.
You go first. Ladies first.
German Shepherd, she was only maybe 4 months old, and I really, really struggled. I didn't want to get a vaccine for her because I had another dog that had a reaction, and she was only like 4 months old, and I thought, well, I was kind of pressured into getting it because I lived at the time. I was living in like an area where the people had a lot of dogs. So I thought, well, if something happens, I better at least have the vaccine or I'll probably be sued. I got her the vaccine, and she literally went out of her mind a few hours later. She was on the floor. She was whining. She was biting her leg. And from that point forward, her health went downhill. And she had seizures, and we had to put her to sleep before she was 2 years old.
Yep, I don't like vaccines.
And the veterinarian recommended this, right?
Oh, yeah, and then they denied it, even though it said on the package insert that could happen.
Mm-hmm. And did anybody put this veterinarian to sleep?
No, he's still practicing.
Plus, Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. And if you go to his website, normshealy.com, you can get the newsletter and you can get an email update as to his latest broadcast. He broadcasts once a week in the afternoons on KICK AM 1340, just outside of Springfield, Missouri. So you can listen to and watch Dr. Norm Shealy live on those 1 hour weekly broadcasts with his business partner and fellow clinician and medical doctor, Dr. Sergey Sorin. And that would be normshealy.com, and you can sign up. Kathy, did you have something else that you'd like to talk about?
No, Vince, that's all.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday. But I did have one question for you. Have you had a chance to drink a warm beverage out of a black coffee mug?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay. Have you? Well, I didn't ask you that for a thank you. I asked you because I want to know if you've noticed a difference. I believe Dr. Shealy has a USA Prepares coffee mug, and you do, and I do, and that is my coffee mug of choice because it's black and it's different. So if you have like a tan or a white coffee mug and you have a beverage in it, you are influenced by the color of the beverage and the smell and the taste. But if you drink out of a black coffee mug, let's say you're having tea, you can't tell what kind of tea it is. You can't tell whether there's honey in it. You can't tell by color. So now you are reduced to taste and smell. And I feel that for me, it makes a massive difference in the enjoyment of a beverage that's warm out of the black coffee mug because it's now taste and smell versus sight, taste, and smell. Have you found the same thing or not?
Yeah, I have, Vince, but I guess I didn't think about it the way you just explained it. But yeah, you're right. You do have to think about what you're drinking rather than just looking at it.
Right, because tea looks like water in that mug. It also looks like apple juice. It also looks like cranberry juice. And, so yeah, that was just wondering if you, had that same, observation. Dr. Shealy?
I have to admit, my taste is not that acute.
Okay. All right, Kathy, thanks very much. I'm looking forward to being on the air with you, on Friday. And, Kathy is our, domestic engineer, Dr. Shealy, and she teaches us, the lost art and the lost science and the lost economics of, running a household. I really appreciate that, Kathy. I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, Vince. Bye.
Right, bye-bye. Dr. Shealy, I have a note in front of me to ask you about thyroid, T3, T4. So, one of our class has, a thyroid condition, and this, gal was tested for T3 and T4, and everything looks okay and normal, but TSH is high. What does that mean to?
It means to me that she's drinking fluoridated water.
Okay.
Fluoride, the body and the lab test cannot differentiate between iodine and fluoride, and so you get false readings. If your temperature is unequivocally below 98.6 after being out of bed 3 hours, she is hypothyroid.
Okay. And what does she do as a middle-aged woman?
In my experience, levothyroxine, the pseudo-false thyroid, is not nearly as good as Armour's. The average physician will not prescribe it, but it's available at all pharmacies.
And, okay, so Armour's, is that a prescription or none?
Yes, Armour's thyroid.
Okay. And is there a recommended starting dose, or does that depend on the test?
Well, it does depend to some extent on the person. You start with 60 milligrams usually. But my dear mother, who weighed like 102 pounds, had a thyroid taken out in 1955, and she required 180 milligrams of Armour's thyroid to have normal thyroid function until she passed away in 2009.
So, Dr. Shealy, you hit the nail right on the head. I know for a fact that this gal is a middle-aged gal. She's a city dweller, and she drinks, city gin, which is, so get off the fluoridated water, the chlorinated water.
Yeah, and it'll take years to clean up, get rid of all the fluoride. But she needs to get off it ASAP.
Okay, and should she be on some kind of a detox protocol?
I don't know a good way to detox from fluoride. It is a long-standing poison.
Okay. I was just wondering if carbon-60 might be of help.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. You and I talked a couple weeks ago about cholesterol, reducing cholesterol the safe and efficient way. One of the things that you recommend was lecithin granules. And what is and you mentioned a quantity per day of lecithin granules. Can you share that with us again to reduce high cholesterol?
2 heaping tablespoons twice a day.
2 heaping TBS, 2XD. Okay. And then you also mentioned something called trimethylglycine, TMG.
Yes.
As a
2,000
supplement.
milligrams 3 times a day.
2,000 milligrams, 3XD. Okay. And how do you take that? Do you take that with water, juice?
Well, I chew it. It's about the size of the last digit in your long finger. It's a big tablet, but it's very soft. You can chew it with ease.
Okay, what if it's a powder?
Well, then I would have to get the milligrams. But again, it's 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day.
Okay, and are there any contraindications, or when either one of those are taken, do you have to avoid taking it with other medications? Should you not take it with some medications, etc.?
I don't think it matters.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, class, you have that for lowering high cholesterol. That's lecithin granules and TMG. Okay. Dr. Shealy, I bought the neatest thing. We didn't have one here at the farm. Our farm was established in 1844 with the President James Buchanan land grant. So you could sign up and get free land, and somebody actually did that for our farm years ago, and you could get a lot of acreage. And of course, it's been cut up and since then and joined with other properties, and so it got smaller and larger. And I believe that yours was probably the same kind of thing in your neck of the woods, which is, less than 100 miles away from our farm here. So your farm was probably established around 1844 as well. Do you think that's true?
Probably, yes.
Okay. And in 1850, there was a company in Ohio, Kathy's neck of the woods, and they made bells. And they had a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3 bell, and they were called school bells, and they were called farm bells. And this was before cell phones, obviously. So if you wanted to let, the guys know they're out in the field, that's time to come in, or there's an emergency, they'd ring the bell. Or school's beginning, they'd ring the bell. So these bells are about 52 pounds, maybe 53 pounds. So they're about 16 inches in diameter, and they're heavy. And they're made out of cast iron. And we didn't have one. And they were put on post. Did your farm have one? Or do you have one?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I decided to buy one, and I found one over the weekend. And I called up this guy, and we started up a conversation, and it was like we were friends. We just hadn't met each other, and he was in Arkansas. And so, but he had this bell, and it was pretty expensive. And I said, well, are you firm on the price? He said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give it to you. And I said, wow, but I can't do that. I have to pay you for it. So I bought this bell for $100, and I am just delighted. And so that's going to be the bell that I call the dogs with. And so, if they're out, checking the area and I need them to come home right away, I'm going to ring this bell. And I was just wondering if you had ever had any experience with one of those big farm bells or school bells.
I do not. I just yell the name.
Okay. Yeah.
It works well.
Yeah, sometimes it works for me too. But I went into the kitchen during the broadcast to top off my coffee, and Mrs. Finelli was holding up my pajama bottoms. And she said, she was doing the laundry. So she put the clothes down for just a minute, turned her back, and my shepherd, we have 2. She has Mercedes, I have Morgan. And Luke Cassidy bought a shepherd from the same breeder, which is really wonderful. And these are wonderful dogs, except they seem to like my socks. So now I have ventilated socks. I now have a pair of ventilated pajamas. We have ventilated sheets. I'm not kidding. We have ventilated blankets. These guys they know what ownership is all about. And, they don't mind, possessing someone else's previously owned things, and socks and pajamas and shirts. And so I've got t-shirts, they're all ventilated. So I don't know how I'm going to train these guys to knock it off, but I'm working on it. Is there, do you know of medications, Dr. Shealy, that, boy, it's going to sound like, I haven't plugged my brain in, but do you know of medications that are really injurious to the body, in ways that we don't know of? For example, I have a friend who has been put on, this inhaler, it's a inhaler that has, steroids in it. And, he's losing his teeth. They're falling out. They're rotting out. And I believe that there is a relationship between inhaled steroids and teeth rot. Do you know?
Well, he's lucky if it's only the teeth, because steroids destroy your immune system. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do not. Now, they can save your life in acute situation, but chronic use is very, very, very dangerous.
Well, I have been on steroids in the past, and I have gotten off them as quickly as possible. And I am not on any now. And I have to tell you that the steroids seem to work to reduce inflammation quickly. Is that right?
That is true.
Okay. Well, but I believe you can do it another way, and that is with your PEMF device.
Oh, I agree.
I believe that. And, I'm walking testimony of that. So, I just wanted to share that with our class. I'm a sample size of 1. So but from my perspective, it absolutely works. And I would much rather use Dr. Shealy's PEMF device for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, or even an hour a day than anything else, to reduce inflammation or to stop inflammation. And, let's see. So I was wondering, Dr. Shealy, is there any other medication that will destroy your body, other than, cancer therapy?
Most.
Excuse me? Okay.
Antihypertensives are among the worst.
Okay. Hypertensive medication?
You have a 45% chance of 3 of them together working, and a 100% chance of chronic fatigue and erectile dysfunction. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, play goes on.
And so that's why the sales of those blue and other colored pills is so high. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. And, Dr. Shealy, during the commercials, I go to the internet and I look for some of your books. And I just bought another one, and that would be your Illustrated Encyclopedia of Healing Remedies. So I just bought another one of those. And class, one of the nicest gifts that you can give somebody, I believe, is Dr. Shealy's books. I really mean that. And some of them are out of print, and this particular one is out of print. And I think if you're only going to buy one book, just one book, that is the book to buy. Kathy's bought one. I think a number of our instructors have it, and it's called The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Healing Remedies. The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Healing Remedies. It's a coffee table book, and you can find it on eBay, and it is beyond fabulous. So I just want to let you know. What I do, Dr. Shealy, is when I find someone that I think is a really nice person, I give them that book. And the guy that I bought the bell from, when he said to me, I'll just give it to you, I said, no, I can't do that. And so I said, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to pay you for it. And he said, all right, $100. And I said, okay, great. Done. It'll take me a couple hours to get there. It was a 250-mile round trip to get this bell. And I brought with me a copy of that book, and I gave it to him, as well as the $100. So, when people are nice, I think that's something that you can do. Dr. Shealy, is that one of your favorite books that you've written? It is certainly.
Well,
it is
yeah.
certainly world class.
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
To me, it's, I don't think there's anything that can compete with it. Literally. I was wondering, Dr. Shealy, about atheists. Okay, so atheists are people who don't believe in God, and there are the other people who are not atheists that do believe in God, and then there are Gnostics who, I guess, don't believe in anything, right?
Well, that's true. By the way, I wanted you to know that on abebooks.com, you can buy the Healing Remedies book for $5.20, including free shipping.
Excellent. I just bought it for $5.07. It's unbelievable.
Well, they have.
Dr. Shealy, seriously.
$5.20, but.
Okay. Well, class, seriously, if you just wanted to get 500 pieces of paper, okay, blank sheets of paper to maybe write on, you couldn't get that for $5.20, let alone have it shipped to you. This is a heavy clayed page, what I'm talking about, glossy pages, heavy pages, illustrated, pictures. It's a coffee table book. It's the kind of book that, in the good old days when if you had people come to your house, you'd have it on your coffee table, you'd be in the living room and you'd sit around and they'd pick up this book and they go, wow, that's this book. And when I said that if you're only going to buy one book for your entire life, this is the book, I wasn't kidding. And I really mean that. So I was wondering about atheists, Dr. Shealy, versus believers. Okay. And believers can be believing in any religion. Let's put all the religions in one category and the atheists on the other side. Does one group live longer than the other, do you think?
I would think unequivocally, because there's excellent evidence that people who pray a lot, who have religious lives, have longer telomeres and live longer, happier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't have a lot of evidence to substantiate it, but from the experiences that I have, people who are religious, people who are devout in their religion, regardless of what it is, they seem to be healthier and happier than atheists. So that was what my thoughts were, but, I just wanted to hear your opinion as well.
Good.
Is there a supplement, Doctor? Mm-hmm. Yes. Is there a supplement that can rebuild your teeth? Can you chew on something, swish on something, eat something that will help rebuild your teeth for those who have just realized that the medications that they're taking are destroying their teeth?
I do not know the answer to that one. That I would have to consult with a dentist.
Okay. All right. And you live on a farm, and we do too, and they're separated by maybe 100 miles. So yesterday, hunting season started this weekend. And so what we do is we go to the top of our dirt road, and we meet lots of people we've never met before. And these hunters are really brave. They'll get 3 of them. They'll get 3 or 4 hunters, and they'll all have high-powered rifles, and they'll be in a great big pickup truck, and they'll be going maybe 1 mile per hour down our road, and they're looking left and they're looking right, and they're looking for that deer that they can shoot right from the truck. So it'll take 3 or 4 of these really brave men with high-powered rifles to take on a deer, an unsuspecting deer, standing in the middle of a field at 200 yards. And yesterday, we saw one of those guys jump out of his car and shoot a deer from the road, across the road, right in front of our farm. Has that ever happened to you, Dr. Shealy?
No. Interestingly, I'm sure I hear it may be happening down in the woods that I never find out about. But as far as being out in the open, I haven't had it happen.
Yeah. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage, just driving down the road and shooting a high-powered rifle.